Progress coaching. And this might be out of all the topics that I've talked about or taught or facilitated, this might be the one that resonates with me selfishly the most. Let me explain. And I'm going to take some notes as I go through this, and I'll look at some of the questions that we have in the chat. But I want to share this with you that I really think something is very interesting. I think we've got it wrong. I think we've got this really, really wrong. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the way we develop our talent. I think we've got it wrong. So let's take a team analogy just for a second, okay? Let's say I'm a volleyball coach of 31 years. Let's say during the play, a setter runs a play and sets the ball up, and a hitter goes up and says, "Nah, I didn't like that set. I didn't like that play." Catches the ball, throws it to the ref. The team loses the sport. Nuts, huh? Or maybe the person who in football, a wide receiver didn't want to run that route, so they ran their own route. They just kind of did a down and out, and the quarterback thought they were going to run over the middle of the field. Crazy, right? So let's think about a non-sports analogy. Let's think about our military. The leader says, "Come on, we're going to go. We're going to storm this hill. We're going to take this hill. Follow me." And everyone behind the leader goes, "No, I don't think so. I think I'm just kind of going to do what I want." We need to realize something. And I want to share with you just something very simple. When you look at this diagram, it's a very simple diagram, right? It's a fictitious company. It's just something that I want you to look at just for a second. Notice something. Notice something that is very obvious. Look at the leaders. You have the president. Then you have a VP of finance, technology, ops, marketing, product development, human resources. Again, this is a fictitious company. So when you look at that, you look at the 5 leaders or the 6 leaders across the top, and then you look at everybody below. The bulk of the organization is typically employees or individual contributors. Now, with that being said, where does most of our money go? It goes to the upper tier to lead those people, to train those people. I think we've got it wrong. So let me show you another chart. When I look at our cultures are made up of conversations. So now let's go back to my sports analogies. What if a volleyball player just said, "No, I didn't like that set," and just catches the ball and doesn't run the play? The wide receiver doesn't run the right route. The basketball player doesn't run the right play. The military, the soldiers say, "Sorry, Colonel, I'm just not going to follow your orders." Now, I think everything that people are going through is very important. Do not get me wrong. Yet when I look at this very, very simple diagram, our cultures are made up of conversations. Let me explain. See, the other day when I was watching a leader and he was challenging one of his employees at a manufacturing client of ours, I could just see the employee stewing over what he was saying. And right after he got done, he walked away, and she had walked away. It ended on what I thought were very good terms. And I did something interesting. I've actually done this a lot, which is not a great thing to share, but I followed the employee. Within 1 minute, she was telling 3 or 4 other employees that he attacked her. He was just, demonstrating he didn't care. That's not what happened. What he was saying was, "We need you to get back to the line on time. We need you to get back to the line on time." So when you have people who can just arbitrarily do what they want, and then, heaven forbid, after they get a directive or feedback or coaching or mentoring or leadership, whatever it is, and they go and tell other people they were attacked, he doesn't care. I can tell you honestly, it's not even close to what happened. So we have people that are emotional listeners, right? We have people who are always interpreting things. So when I look at this, again, this very simple diagram, we need to invest, I would even say equally, in employees' reception of coaching, mentoring, and leadership. The other day, I had a conversation. Now, I'm about to share something that's going to really rub people the wrong way. I had an employee who kept saying, "Yeah, but, yeah, but, yeah, but." I said, "Look, stop. Your agreement or disagreement is not criteria for that leader. End of discussion. And she looked at me, and I did that very forcefully with her. And I actually know her really well. She's a really tough cookie, and she took it well. And I go, you can't let your opinion be your gospel. You don't make the rules here. True? She goes, yeah, but I said, no, yes or no? She said, no. I said, then just stop. Listen. Do you know why that leader asked you to do what he asked you to do? And this is a different scenario than the earlier one. And she said, well, I really don't. I said, then why are you upset? Why are you discounting his leadership, his feedback? And she said, well, I just get really frustrated. I said, awesome. Why? Well, I think sometimes there's so many things that go on here that people don't see. And I said, awesome. How have you thoughtfully, professionally approached management and say, you know what? I've got some great ideas to share with you people that I really think would make things better. Thoughtfully and professionally. She starts laughing. And I said, what are you laughing at? And she said, yeah, I know I get really upset. So I think when we think about our organizations, and I go back to this very simple diagram, the bulk of our people are who? They're individual contributors and employees. How many of you have had employees taught how to seek and accept feedback on their own terms? How many of you have used reflective feedback reception? Meaning I go up to the president and say, you know, Miriam, where do I have an opportunity to improve? And she tells me, and I just say, thank you. And I reflect for 24 hours before I demonstrate an opinion. We just did this at a company, and we had over an 80% positive response rate from employees saying, yes, in the moment I felt frustrated. But it was funny, 24 hours later, you know what? I actually felt a little better about it. And I said, it's kind of like having a fight with someone, right? You say things that are out of context. You say things that you didn't mean. Then what does everybody do? We come back a day or two later. So I'm sorry, I was thinking about what we did in our argument. I'm really sorry. The same thing happens in the workplace. See, our workplace is comprised of conversations. It is not our mission statement. It's not our values and principles, because if our conversations don't support those, take them off your wall. So there's a couple of points of strategy I want to share with you. Number one, we have to realize that cultures are made up of conversations. Number two, that we have to have conversations without judgment and interpretation. I'm going to say something that most people won't do. It requires practice. I'm telling you right now, we get it all the time. We don't have time. It's such bull. When people don't say they don't have time to coach, mentor, and develop their talent, it's such a load of crap. Here's why. When somebody leaves an organization, and a lot of people are leaving, what do? Just say, oh, we can't hire anybody to replace that person. I just don't have time. It's a choice. So we have to realize that our culture is made up of conversations. And we have to invest in our employee pool to understand they have to run the plays like a good volleyball player, like a good basketball player, like a good wide receiver on a football team. You have to run the plays. That is without question. You have to do the job. Number two, much like our military, you cannot have a soldier look at a colonel and say, you know, I think you're kind of out of your mind and whacked. I'm going to go to HR. Would never be tolerated. I had a great conversation this year with somebody who I didn't think I was going to resonate with. And it was one of our client sites. And I said, oh, what'd you do in the military? And he said, I diffused bombs. I was over in the Middle East. And my jaw dropped. And I said, wow. And I started laughing. He goes, what's so funny? I go, so all this stuff at the company, when everyone's stressed, he goes, they don't know what stress is. And we both started laughing. I said, do you miss it? And I could tell there was an emotional reaction. He said, I do. He said, I miss it a lot. I said, diffusing bombs. He said, but my mission, what I did was really important. It saved people's lives. And I said, could I ask your opinion? Could I get your advice? He said, sure. He said, when you think about alignment in an organization, he just loses it. He said, I'm telling you, if everybody served in the military for 2 years, we wouldn't be at water coolers talking. We wouldn't be complaining about upper level management. He goes, do I like everything that's going on here? No, but I know it's not in my DNA to judge and undermine people above me. That is how I was trained. Now, some of you might be listening to this saying, well, wait a minute, we're not the military. This is a corporation. We want to be thoughtful and professional with our employees. Of course you do. We all should be. Yet I think we have to realize something. when we go back to, this type of view, we spend a ton of money on leadership development and training. Our leaders have to have conversations that are inspiring and motivating and thoughtful and professional. Now, with that being said, I go back to this diagram and I say to myself, it's really interesting because every time you go to a company or I go and do a webinar or a public speaking engagement, I ask people, when you call someone in the office, what's the employee's first response? Do you know in 27 years, I've never had somebody say something positive? They always say, well, what did I do wrong? Why is that? Because that's what leaders do. We don't call people in arbitrarily for the good stuff. At least the bulk of the companies out there don't. Now, number two, we don't train employees, coach employees, mentor employees, cultivate an employee mentality to do what? To go seek feedback on their terms, such as boss. Where are two areas I'm performing well from your estimation? And where do you feel like I have an opportunity to raise my game? What if employees were seeking feedback and reflecting, not reacting, reflecting, not reacting, reflecting, not reacting? Boy, was that theatrical. And I just did this at a client site. Over 80% of the people said, I felt better about the feedback 24 hours later. Now, can we do that all the time? No, but it's conditioning an open mindset to coaching and feedback and mentoring. See, if we improve employee reception, leadership conversations become easier. Then the culture creation starts. So when we are investing in our people and we're investing in leadership training, but we're investing in the reception of leadership, the reception of feedback, the reception of mentoring and talent development initiatives, guess what happens? Things get better. Employees start to look at these situations much differently. Now, this is not a sales pitch, but I want to be very clear. We actually just created something called feedback progressions. And we actually teach about 12 different feedback reception strategies. And we deployed this at this client, and they're actually in the midst of doing it now. And the leaders are coming back saying, wow, we're actually having better conversations. See, I think we think training leaders is sometimes the answer. Yet we also have to make it easy on them. Can you imagine a leader in his or her office and someone knocks on the door and says, do you have about 10 minutes to chat? I would love your feedback on where I'm performing well and where I have an opportunity to raise my game. And what if it made it easier for the leader to do that? And what if we taught employees to reflect and not react? Wouldn't our conversations get better? Wouldn't our cultures get better? Wouldn't our alignment improve? Wouldn't our ability to run plays improve? Number two, teach leaders strength-based coaching, calling people into the office for the good stuff, leaving a note on the desk, writing a handwritten card, you're doing a fantastic job in the marketing department, and sending it to someone's home. This crap about time is ridiculous. Because if you don't have time, then you should not be a leader. I'm going to leave you with one big thought for leaders. Silence is very, very loud, very loud. When you don't have time for your people, they hear that and it gets louder and louder. Oh, by the way, the phone just rang. Oh, by the way, it's a recruiter for a competitor. I always share this, and I had one of the greatest interactions at a conference I was at, and I had a CEO say, well, what if you don't have time? I said, okay. I said, I'm going to ask you something. I said, you came here, you opened up the door. Are you okay with this? He said, sure. I said, so you don't have time? He said, no. I said, okay. So you have no time to develop talent. Why are your people leaving? He said, money, 5 to 10 grand more a year, and they just walk out. I said, okay. I said, that's not the only reason. He said, I just told you it is. I said, no, it's not. You already know the other reason. I said, no, I don't. And the audience is looking at me like, what are you doing? And I said, I already know why your people are leaving, and it's not money. He said, what is it then? And he laughed and he kind of smirked. I said, you don't have time for me. 10 grand looks pretty good. But boy, if you were spending 10 minutes with me every week and you were buying me books to help me become a future leader, because maybe that's one of my goals, and you sent a handwritten card home, and now my wife loves you, by the way. My kids think you're just awesome because you sent me a card. They thought that was cool. Boy, you just became tough to quit on. And he just sat there and I said, look, that was kind of rough. And he goes, no, no, no. I opened the door. He goes, boy, that's really got me thinking. I said, look, I'm not saying it's a magic formula, yet you have to invest in your people. And if your people are resistant to coaching, feedback, mentoring, thought-provoking ideas, suggestions, and oh my gosh, change and challenge, it's because they haven't been conditioned and cultivated, trained, mentored, and coached to receive it well. And if we have good receivers and we have good providers, so think about a wide receiver and a quarterback. If we got somebody who can throw the ball and somebody who's willing to run the routes and be on the same page, we hear it all the time in sports. Boy, they're on the same page with each other. They know what each other's thinking. No, they don't. They have a pattern of consistency with each other. So people quit today because of their emotional reaction to things. We have the ability to invest in our people. So number one, again, go back, train your employees on feedback reception to seek it and accept it and reflect upon it. We do something called feedback progressions. Number two, train leaders on strength-based coaching. That's our progress coaching mastery course. Number three, I'm going to give you something that people think I'm a lunatic over. Train every single employee in your company on how to be a coach. We actually have a program called the Everyday Coach. Here's why. You know, even though you might have an executive assistant, a secretary, an individual contributor, a customer service agent, whatever that individual contributor is, they are a coach somewhere in their life. Could be their kids' sports teams. It could be at home. They could be a single parent. They have to coach. They have to lead. And what that does is it gives individual contributors inside your organization the opportunity to understand what your leaders are going through. It is amazing to me to this day that I will hear employees at companies go, "Ugh, can you hear what management did? Oh, it's just such bull. I mean, I can't believe," and they just gripe. Critical of leadership during a pandemic we haven't had for how many years? And oh, by the way, they've never, ever, ever been leaders. Can you imagine going to a restaurant, going into the kitchen like, oh, this guy doesn't know how to cook and she doesn't know how to cook and it's just awful. And oh my God, this food it could be so much better. And you've never cooked a day in your life. So what we have to do is get back to center. We've got an employee pool. We've got a leadership pool. We spend a lot of money on the leadership pool. Yet the bulk of our companies, 70 to 80% of our people, of our population, are typically employees and individual contributors. We need to bring them together on equal terms. Think about employees seeking and accepting things professionally. Think about leaders now being more comfortable and having easier conversations. What just happened to the culture? It just tightened, became, interactive with one another, woven together, tightened together. Those are the kind of things we need to do inside our organizations. So let me just give you a little bit of narration of what we do here at Progress Coaching. So for employees, we have many programs on teaching how to accept and seek feedback. Then number two, we also teach employees, everyday employees, a program called Everyday Coaching, or the Everyday Coach, where we're teaching them how to be a coach, how to coach their peers, how to give positive feedback. Great for succession planning. Number two, leaders, how to have conversations. We literally measure conversational skills now. We have a program called Why Leadership Conversations Matter, our Progress Coaching Mastery course. The reason I'm bringing this up, this isn't concept for us. We're literally solving this issue for many of our clients. And it's tough. And I go back to the last thing I'm going to bring up, practice. We are such instant gratification people today in the workplace. Well, I talked to Johnny, he's got a bad attitude and I spoke to him and, he was just still resistant. It didn't work. I just had that with someone. I said, oh my gosh, do you have a car? Run him over. The guy goes, what? I go, he's been having that attitude for 10 years. You just tried something. What were your expectations? People don't fall over and say, you know what? You're right. I'm just awful. My mentality is terrible. And I want to let you know next month, I'm going to really undermine my teammates. People don't change instantly. In our course in Progress Coaching, we actually have a a section where we actually talk about this, where we talk about people will avoid change, especially in themselves. They'll spend 150% of their energy avoiding that change when the change would only require 100% of their energy. And again, one of my favorite authors, Tasha Eurich, in her book Insights, this was so amazing to me because we, for 27 years now, have said coaching is a two-step process. It's number one, getting someone to look in the mirror. Number two, it's taking action on number one. Yet people very rarely do number one arbitrarily on their own. In her book, she did a survey, and I think it was 95% of the people said they were highly self-aware. When she tested them, she found out only 10% of those people were somewhat aware. That means 80 to 85% of us are just full of it. So what we have to think about is, think about your company and think about it this way, right? When the more you go up in the org chart, it gets thinner, right? There aren't an equal number of VPs with employees or individual contributors. You know, when you get up to a director level, you don't have the same number of directors that you do managers, right? So the more you go up in an organization, it thins out. So what we tend to do is we tend to cascade our leadership down. What if we pushed it up? And what I mean by that is, what if employees were taught how to coach? What if they were taught how to receive and seek feedback and coaching on their terms? What if they made giving constructive feedback easier for leaders? And we taught them the ability to reflect and own and practice and truly look in the mirror. Wouldn't the culture improve? I think we've put so much on leaders today and so much about our industry. And again, I know mental health is out there. I know anxiety is out there. I know there's depression out there. I'm not dismissing that. Yet, what I would say on a different playing field, for those people who are not battling those things from a medical perspective, they have a role and responsibility to help their organizations get through this. Let's be candid about people. When times get tough at an organization, how many times have people come through your office and said, "Boss, I'm here. I'm going to be here for the long haul. Don't you worry about me. I'm going to come through for you." You know what most employees do, don't you? We all do. Because I go back to that person I met at the conference. 5 to 10 grand, boy, I will jump ship quickly. And as an entrepreneur, you know, I go through the same thing. You know, people quit. It happens. And you have to look in the mirror and say, you know, what could you have done? What could you have done differently? But I don't have time to stew or, you know, get depressed or be upset over it. You have to move on. There's no time. I don't have time to really wallow in the pain. So what I would share with all of you is, I think this is it. I think if we could push upward and get the bulk of our population creating a positive relationship with feedback and coaching and make it easier for leaders, we're going to bring people together. I think, quite frankly, I hope this comes off the right way. I think we have it wrong. I really do. And I think if you think about a sports analogy, can you imagine in a press conference, a pro athlete just saying, "Nah, I didn't want to run that play, so I just gave up in the middle"? They would be chastised in the press, right? So again, cultures are made up of conversations, and we have to converse without judgment. We have emotional interpreters and listeners. The reason most people don't accept feedback is based on agreement or disagreement. The goal of feedback isn't to gain agreement. The goal of feedback from a provider standpoint should be done with the following objective: to provide it so someone receives it well and strategically utilizes it. The receiver has to look at that feedback, whether in agreement or disagreement, and say, there's a perception there. How can I alter that perception? What can I do to embrace that feedback and strategically utilize it? Yet 9 times out of 10, we hear employees simply say, "Oh, he attacked me. She was just really aggressive." That wasn't it. That was the way they interpreted it, because they haven't practiced reception. Look at your organization, and I encourage you to look at your organization, you know, just from this standpoint, and ask yourself, how many people in your organization, how many people truly in your organization have been taught the value of feedback, how to seek it, and how to accept it? Then if we have conversations that fuel one another and are really done in such a way that we can have cultures where employees are driving things and leaders are driving things, wouldn't things get better? And so again, we have a wonderful opportunity right now because this whole pandemic thing has created some really unique changes, some very positive, some very challenging. So think about your team, think about your organization, think about people seeking and accepting feedback. What if you invested in your employee pool and you drove the feedback request upward? You drove the need for coaching upward. And then now all of a sudden this becomes this. I hope this has been helpful. Let me know your thoughts in the chat. As always, reach out to us if you have any questions. But this, for me, is probably one of the biggest things that we have an opportunity to do right now, is to teach leadership from almost a bottom-up strategy, not just simply a top-down strategy. Thanks, everybody. Hope it was helpful.